Hey there, Squirrel Army! Today we're discussing bojuka and how worth it is in EDH.
You can join the Squirrel Army by subscribing.
Alrighty, so I don't know. This might be a little bit controversial for some people. I guess it's one of those cards that a lot of people do like to run in the format. I don't particularly like it. Because I feel like it isn't a card that I feel is worth the time to use, because there's no real way you can plan for it to come out at the right time for the most part. I often see people play it on like turn 1 or 2 sometimes and just be like, cool, I exiled nothing with this. And that is the hit and miss nature of cards in general. That's why I don't like this sort of style of an effect, really. It can save your butt 100%. I understand that is a possibility. It's not always that way of, oh, well, I exiled nothing, or I exiled a land, or something, mostly irrelevant things. But I don't like that you don't have any real control over what you're exiling and when you're exiling, for the most part. That's what I don't like about this card. And I don't know whether it's worth the time to put in decks because of that factor. Like, if you've got a lot of tutors to sort of get specific lands out, then I don't know, maybe it can find a home in your deck, or if you're finding ways to sacrifice it and whatnot and return it to the battlefield over and over again, or whenever you really need it, then maybe, yes, it can be well worth it. Maybe in like a Muldrotha deck, or whatnot, you could use it there to slow down other Muldrotha players or other graveyard synergy decks or whatnot. So it's not like it doesn't have any place in the format whatsoever. I don't think it's completely unplayable at all. I'm just saying I don't think it's the most playable card that people should think about putting in the decks. Yes, it does tap for black, so that can help some decks and whatnot. If you're mono black, it might not be that big of a deal to have this in your deck. And you can always run more other graveyard hate cards as well and whatnot. But just the fact that this is uncontrollable and it enters tapped, I know that that's a small downside to have to pay for exiling somebody's graveyard, and the fact that it doesn't exile each opponent's graveyard or whatever, everyone's graveyard, makes me feel like a little bit worse. Yes, sure, again, you can have that point where, well, the other two players really aren't doing very much with their graveyard, and this person at least is the most dangerous with their graveyard, the Muldrotha player over there or whatnot. So again, you can get those times where it is a very good, but I just think that if you want a grave hate land, that this isn't the way to go. It's just not a card that I ever really used. I stopped using it because I found all of these sorts of issues with it. It would come in to play when I would need it least most of the time, and when I got the exile effect on somebody or something, it would never really be what I wanted. You know, you can run a few of those Tormod's Crypt style of effects and whatnot, the artifacts. They do cost 1 or 2, some of them do cost 1 or 2 mana, but again, I don't know. It is up to your prerogative to decide whether you want to play those as well, I guess. It is just up to your prerogative to decide if you actually want to play this as well. I'm not going to, keep saying it to people, but hey, this is just my idea, and this is the way that I suggest that people go about things and say, hey, look at this card, let's think about it. Is it worth my time? I don't think it's worth your time. That's all I'm saying. That's it. If you want to play it and have fun and see if it works for you, that's all cool. I don't really care that much. I'm just trying to help people in any way that I can help people with their decision-making processes and whatnot, to see that, yes, this card has its downsides, and hey, well, maybe yeah, I should look at something else, and that's it. Like that's what I did. I just kept finding that this card didn't do me what I wanted it to do, or when I needed it to do it, and I'm just like, well, or didn't exile all my opponent's graveyards, or didn't exile all graveyards, or whatever, that sort of thing. So it did feel like, well, if somebody has like hex proof or that sort of thing, well, suddenly now I can't target that person. So it like a more blanket effect, so that it's less easy to get rid of or negate or whatever in that regard. So yeah, but that's just the way that I felt about that, because I felt like it's harder to get rid of that sort of thing for the most part. So I mostly play Scavenger Grounds if I want a land that exiles graveyards. I play a couple of other cards here and there, depending on what the deck is, to exile cards as well, that sometimes are somewhat useful in some regards, and whatnot. But that's another thing, because, again, it depends what you're trying to do, and that's where like looking for synergies really does help. But if you just want something that plain out and out just exiles graveyards, yeah, there are a few that are out there, that are worth looking at, and it is tough to decide what you're going to play sometimes, because there's so much in the format. But again, yeah, I don't know. Like, to me, it's one of those things, like, you've got to really be a little bit desperate to play this. I think it's fine in other formats, 1v1 formats and whatnot, because, again, the increased size of commander just makes the target opponent always less good, and whatnot. So, yeah, and the fact that, again, you're not ever going to get this consistently when you need it, just to me, again, means that I want something that will consistently do it for me, or when I need it. So I would rather have that slight mana gate and whatnot, even so, just so that I can, even if I'm wrong and don't know enough about perhaps the timings and whatnot, that sort of thing, to, make sure my opponent doesn't do what I hope they're not going to do, which is kill us and win the game. At least I hope that I can time it pretty well. And that means that, yeah, it might not be, for free like this is, which is an upside to it. But again, it's one of those things where I would rather pay a slight downside on another card, like Scavenger Grounds or whatever, to exile graveyards, rather than, oh, well, I don't know when or if and how, or if I'm going to get anything of any note out of it. And again, that can be done, that all Scavenger Grounds and sort of Tormod's Crypt style of effects can be done at instant speed. So again, that's why I like those a lot more, because you can get them whenever you sort of need them, rather than, oh, I have to do it at sorcery speed. So again, that's another upside for a lot of those other cards that I just don't like about this card. It makes it very hard to sort of justify in my perspective. But again, you guys can let me know what you guys think. Write your thoughts down there in the comments. Am I so super duper wrong? I don't know. But again, it's nice to sometimes discuss these things, and this was a bit of a discussion and I wanted to weigh in on it. So hope you guys have enjoyed the discussion, and hope you'll join me again in another one.